Hey everybody, just want to do a little update here on my clown loaches. Yesterday I took the bigger of these two out of my Gourami tank and I moved it over here into this 125, and it was a pretty stressful transfer, but he seems to have come around nicely. Everything seems to be going well. He's getting along with the other loaches that are in the tank. There is another clown loach in this tank, but it's much smaller. It's actually kind of interesting. I wonder if it's got something to do with a dominance and subservience type thing. But when I put two loaches in the Gourami tank originally, I put them in at the same time, and one grew so much faster than the other, and eventually got to be the bigger one. You can see down there on the left, it's considerably larger than the one that is still remaining in my Gourami tank. Likewise, when I put the two loaches in this tank sometime later, after I realized how much I enjoyed having these loaches, I put two loaches in this tank. And you can see there, the smaller of these two is actually one of the ones that was put in this tank. And then there is a much smaller one that I do not see at the moment. And that is the other one I put in this tank. So again, I had a situation where one loach grew significantly faster than the other one. I mean, significantly faster than the other one. It's amazing to see the difference in size. It's also interesting to see how this Sena Dontist seems to be upset by the presence of these loaches. He's never really acted that way too much before. He does get fussy and chases people around from time to time, but it's no big deal. It's not really any kind of level of aggression that I worry about, and neither is this actually. But it's just, dynamics change when you start mixing it up and putting different fish with different personalities, and clearly this is a much different sized fish that's gone in the tank. Suddenly there's a fish in here now that's as big as the biggest fish in the tank. So, obviously that's going to sort of shift the way everybody behaves for a little while. I'm really getting kind of interested to see if we see this little clown loach now. I don't really have the room to bend over and look down into this cave deeply enough, but looking at my camera here, it doesn't seem to be in there anywhere. So I'm going to have to keep my eyes out for that one. I never noticed aggression between the two before, and I never noticed aggression between the two that were in the other tank. So I don't know why having three in this tank would suddenly result in aggression towards the smaller one. But my Sena Dontist sure does not like to have them in here. It's interesting. So that's definitely something I'm going to have to keep an eye on too. If I have to make changes, I can. I can always move things around if I need to. I've always got the option of the fish store that will take fish off my hands if I need to. So if worst case scenario, I've always got a place that I can rehome problematic fish like this. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk about when I moved this fish over, I'm hoping I get a look at a third one popping out there. The way I was seeing fish dart around in there, I wasn't sure if that third loach was in there or not. But when I went to transfer this one, it got caught in the net. I wasn't really even trying to catch it in a net. It got kind of caught in the net by itself. And then loaches have these little spikes or hooks that can come out. They're sort of retractable. They kind of fold in, and they have muscles that can flip them out of the side of their face. They use them for defense. And I've also heard they use them for wiggling snails out of their shells, which I could certainly see them doing that. But I'd never seen them before. I'd always heard about them, and I'd always heard you should never really move a loach in a net because these things can get snagged. And in this case, they did. As soon as that loach went into the net, he started thrashing around and instantly was tangled up in it. And when I got to the net to get him out, I could clearly see long, white, needle-like spikes sticking out of the side of its face, one sticking straight out of either side, and that's what was tangled up in the net. I really wanted to grab my camera, ever the documentarian. I always like to get stuff like that on video just because it would be interesting to see and be able to show other people. But he was more or less dangling by his face hooks, or whatever you want to call them, in the net, thrashing around. And, my judgment was that getting him out of the net quickly and safely was more important than getting that on video. So I did not do that. And I wound up just using a pair of pliers, actually. I opted not to use my hands just because it seemed a little too sketchy if he thrashed around the wrong way. These were some serious spikes that would have been in me. So I used some pliers. I pinched the net, not the spike, but I pinched the net gently next to the spike and then sort of twitched it away on the one side. And when the one side became freed up, the fish sort of flicked his head and thrashed a little bit, and that was able to sort of pop the other side loose. And when he did that, he dropped into the tank and was swimming around just fine. I did take him into my hand for a minute when I was going to, do it by hand. And when I grasped him, his slime coat was just in overdrive. It was just nasty picking him up. It was like picking up an eel. It was so slimy and gross. So again, between that and the slipperiness and him thrashing around and being a much larger, stronger fish than I anticipated, he's really bigger than you think when you actually pick him up and put him in your hand. I've gone fishing on many a day and not caught fish as big as that one. So, interesting experience all the way around, and he seems to be doing well enough in this tank. His colors came back, he was all sort of marked up and mottled from the stress and everything for the last day or so, but it's been a little more than 24 hours now, and he looks like he's doing really well, and I'm happy with what I'm seeing. The only thing that's still concerning me is the lack of the other one. I guess let's look around along the surface here and see if we can see him floating. I'm concerned that the other ones may have bullied and killed him, or he's so stressed that he's in hiding somewhere. I don't see him on the surface. But I was just in here feeding the tank not long ago, and now in here for this, and all this time I've not seen that third loach. Unless maybe he popped up on the video and I was not looking at the video when all three of them were on video at the same time or something. I don't know. Keep in mind, this piece of wood is completely hollow underneath. It's a very large cavity under there, much larger than you would think just by looking at it. So it's entirely possible that the one is under there, because the smaller one of these three is considerably smaller. He's probably a quarter the size of the smaller of these two. We're talking about maybe a similar size to this Congo tetra. He's that small. So easily could be hiding under a rock or who knows where, but I'm going to have to keep my eyes open for that one. So make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss any of the updates I got coming up. I've got some changes happening around here. I've got some tanks I've rearranged, so dynamics are going to change, behavior's going to change. All that sort of stuff. So I'll be doing plenty of update videos here in the very near future, and if you're subscribed, you won't miss any of them. So don't forget, this one is my 125 gallon tank. Thanks for watching. I'll see you real soon.